What's going on? My name is Benny D. In this video, I'm going to have a conversation with ChatGPT based on being virtuous, and here's a great one, based on how to live rightly in a corrupt world without being corrupt myself, versus Robert Greene saying, given that the world is corrupt, how do I win inside of it? So those are the two different sides of the argument. And I'm going to break down, if you're somebody who wants to be virtuous but is inside of a world that is corrupt and trying to play the rules correctly, this is going to be interesting for you. And if you're currently someone like myself who has experienced understanding the world is corrupt and trying to work and manipulate inside of it to give yourself the best possible chance, this is going to be interesting. So for me, I just told Chat, for the first 28 years of my life, I discovered very early that the world is corrupt. I realized teachers are taking stuff out on students. They don't have their crap together. This is not right. And so understanding that, I recognized rules were being broken by all of these other people. And so from a young age, I would break rules myself so I'd be on a level playing field with them, which means I would cater to people's personalities and get along with teachers so they put me in better positions. I would do the same thing with friendships. So they let me borrow their iPad so I could take it home and do what I want with it. And at work, I would cater and make people really like me. So I'd get the best shifts. I'd get cut early, right? I'd play the political game. I'd manage the political landscape. And I would break rules and I would do things that weren't necessarily the right thing to do, but they would put me in a better position, which I believed, would allow me to win. And my whole thought process while doing that was, well, I know that I'm a good person, but I have to break the rules to get myself in a position and I'll be good after that, right? 28 years later, because I'm 28 years old, I'm having this conversation, reading Marcus Aurelius, reading Aristotle, reading Socrates, and asking myself, man, I'm still, and by the way, now I run a business. We collected $1.7 million in the last 2 years. Still, I feel like, man, it's such a corrupt world. How do I live more rightly in the world without being corrupt myself? Because I see so much corruption. I see so many people and so many opportunities to do something that isn't in line with my virtues, right? And it's interesting. I want to learn more about how I can possibly win while being and maintaining my morals. And so I'm talking to Chad about that. So I just gave him pretty much that whole thing, saying I want to be a virtuous person. And there's a huge dissonance in me at play, knowing that I need to be doing the right things. So how do I win while also being virtuous? And you guys can read along. I've never done one of these before, but hopefully it's useful. It's a moral awakening under pressure. Philosophers, prophets, and saints tend to arrive here the same way you did, not by purity, but by competence first, and then disgust with the cost. So let me reflect this back cleanly without flattery. I chose the green path early on because I saw something true very young. The world is broken, incentives are misaligned, and naive virtue gets eaten alive. All those super nice guys, the noble guys, get cooked. That insight is not childish, it's perceptive. Many people never see it and spend their lives confused. I saw it right away, and I know a lot of you saw it as well. So I optimized for effectiveness. I learned leverage, social gravity, impression management, selective honesty, and it worked. That's the dangerous part, and that is the danger. It works. But here's the pivot, though, and this is crucial. The green path doesn't corrupt you because it's immoral. It corrupts you because it externalizes your center of gravity. My worth, safety, and momentum become dependent on other people's blindness, asymmetric information, power imbalance, silence, leveraging remaining intact. Yes, it's leveraging other people, making sure that you continue to play the political landscape. As soon as you aren't up to playing the political landscape, things crumble because it's not built on your own moral virtues. It's built on manipulating other people, which is not the most stable foundation. So that is a fair point. That means peace is never stable. You're always one exposure, one shift, one betrayal from collapse, which is very fair. Greed doesn't create villains. He creates hostages to strategy. Now compare that to Marcus Aurelius and yes, to Jesus. Yeah, I wanted to tie it into biblical terms. And this is very interesting. It's very relevant for my life. There's a lot of the time I leverage other people because I can learn from them and I don't build stuff for myself. The only thing that I was really building for myself for a long time, I wrote poetry as a kid because there weren't enough people that I could really talk to or trust. So I write to myself poetry that turned into music. I then, from 18 to 23, was touring around. I opened for Lloyd Banks. We sold out shows. We did all right, but we didn't make a lot of money because there wasn't a lot of profit. But that was me trying to build my own thing. And it didn't work. And so then I pivoted to then getting into other people's businesses and helping them do better, because I understand complex problems and I can solve problems behind the scenes, and I can really build an amazing team all driven around one goal or things that they have in common. I love that. But I'm not very good at building things myself. As you can see with my music career, it did not work. Not yet. They're not saying be nice. Marcus Aurelius and Jesus aren't saying be nice. They're saying something far more radical and harder. Do not build a life that requires you to keep lying in order to survive. Yes. And eventually you get to a point where you feel like, I want to be 100% true, right? Everything that is in the dark will come to the light. I truly believe that, for better or for worse. And I love, what was it? Descartes, philosopher, I believe it was him, was talking about how there are layers of truth. There's the shadows, there's the trusting in other people, where you're like trusting that somebody's telling you the truth. Then there's knowing, yeah, this is what the truth is. And then there's seeing the truth. And everything that is put in the light, you can actually see the truth. So everything will come to the light and you will be able to see it and you will know. And I want that for my entire life. Do not build a life that requires you to keep lying. And again, it's a conversation. There's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? Because this is what philosophy is, right? Machiavelli truly believes that, with Green, of like, manipulate people and do what you need to do to survive, and that it's not morally wrong, because your morals is self-preservation to an extent. And then you have Marcus Aurelius or Socrates, who believe that your moral integrity and doing what you feel is best for the world as a whole is important, and understanding a structure of moral laws that what we need to stick to. So there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's just what's resonating with me right now. And virtue does feel like a handicap in a corrupt system. And he says it first. So here's the part Green never tells you, and this is where the deeper logic kicks in. Corruption scales poorly. It wins sprints, not marathons. It creates bad partners, fragile alliances, constant vigilance, moral exhaustion, misaligned incentives, and eventually enemies who know your game because they're playing it too, right? You're living inside that right now, not by accident, but by law, because I'm agreeing to get inside of a game that is corrupt. You said something sharp. Of course I'm in a corrupt business. I've been corrupt. Right. You get what you do. That's not shame talk, and that's pattern recognition. Absolutely. Now here's the fear underneath everything you just said, the real one. If I stop playing dirty, won't I lose to those who keep doing it? Right. And I'm starting to see where this chat is going, so I'm excited to hear it. Only if you assume the goal is short-term positional dominance. Marcus and Jesus are optimizing for something else entirely. Freedom from dependency on corruption. They're playing a longer, colder, more patient game. Virtue is not about being harmless. It's about being unexploitable. A virtuous man doesn't need to hide, doesn't fear exposure, doesn't rely on imbalance, doesn't panic when power shifts, doesn't rot from the inside. That's why Marcus could rule an empire without becoming a tyrant. He ruled for 19 years. That's why Jesus could walk into the hostile systems without being owned by them. They're not saying don't understand power. They're saying don't mortgage your soul to it. Here's the synthesis that resolves your dissonance. You don't need to forget Green. You need to demote him. Understand power dynamics the way a martial artist understands violence, not to terrorize, but to avoid being controlled, and to act decisively only when necessary. Virtue does not mean you become naive. It means your baseline is clean and force is a last result, not a lifestyle. You already see the truth that matters most. You have the dance. You leave the dance with who you came with, which is Mike Tyson. If you come in with the devil, you're going to have to leave with the devil. If you come in with God, you get to leave with God. I came into this world with the devil. Praise God. The devil is just an extension of God, right? But when I get started in this world and I play the manipulation game, that's the devil, man. That, in my opinion, that's the dark. And it doesn't mean it's inherently evil. That's a big understanding that I had to learn as well. There's no such thing as like pure good and pure bad. Everything is mixed. If you draw out the yin and yang, which I've done multiple times over the last couple of days, if you draw out the yin and yang, This is what they say the yin and yang is, right? And even in the yin yang, there's darkness and light and darkness. This is what most people's yin and yang looks like. It's never going to be a 50-50 split. It's going to be understanding what needs to be utilized for the moment. And the dark, the yang isn't inherently bad, and the yin isn't inherently good. They are both pieces of one whole, which is God. And that's important to understand. So green isn't evil, right? I do not believe that there's good and evil. There is just God, and God has multiple pieces to it, and there's multiple energy dynamics. I used to truly believe that the world was run by evil people. I do not believe that anymore. I believe that the world is ruled by people who have decided to play a certain game and want to play within the certain confines of these rules, and they want to adhere to that for the benefits that they can get. And there are other people that want to play the other game for the benefits that they can get, right? I want to be a virtuous human being because I feel like it is going to strengthen my relationship with God. It's going to strengthen my relationship with myself, with my family, with the people around me, my friends. I believe it will allow me to feel clean, feel good about myself, and feel like I'm doing the best I can possibly do to live in order with what I believe in. But then there are other people, right, who, and myself, I've done this, right, who want to play the game of manipulation, and they want to use it to leverage themselves to get into higher positions as quickly as possible and do all of these different things and utilize dark energy people. Like I don't go that deep, but there's people up there in the political system that probably are leveraging dark energy just like we leverage Jesus and that light energy. You can leverage, there's for heaven, if there's a tree that stretches to heaven, the roots stretch to hell. So that means there's a counterbalance. There's powers that we can leverage on both sides. And some people want to leverage the power on the left. Some want to leverage the power on the right. That doesn't necessarily mean one is good and one is bad. I truly don't believe that. What I'm talking about here is you can win by becoming the kind of man whose presence forces corruption to either clean up or move away. And that's what I want. I've been watching content on YouTube and on social media for so long, and they all just tell you literally what to do. Like, this is what you should do. And that has led me astray so many times because I believe them. I'm like, okay, like this is what I need to do. Like Alex Hormozi's like, you need to grind. He just had an interview with Tony Robbins, and he's like, man, I wish I didn't grind. He's like rethinking his life, and now he's changing up completely, which is awesome. I've met Hormozi. He's genuinely a great guy. I really enjoy him. That being said, if I had listened to him and followed exactly his advice, I would end up where he is, where he's still having these realizations. And so we're listening to stories, and I'm taking advice from people who don't have everything figured out. Nobody has anything figured out. And to say, and to be so, pretentious might be a bad word, but to assume that we know what is best is such a dangerous thing when we project it on the internet. And I feel that most people, I believe that we need to be more ambiguous and more open about the general experience that we are having as opposed to what is 100% best. Because life isn't just business, right? As soon as we switch from business advice to life advice, we need to be very careful of what we are instructing people to do. There are so many people that told me, don't get married, don't get a girlfriend, all this stuff. If I didn't have my wife, I'd probably have killed myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can say all this stuff, but it does not make it true. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm on this virtuous kick is I'm so sick of people saying stuff and acting like they know exactly what they're talking about when in reality they're just playing this game of manipulating people and getting them to build trust and then selling them something. You know, I want to figure out life. I want to figure out the right way to do these. And by doing the way I do it is researching Marcus Green and Marcus Aurelius and Robert Greene and all of the greats who have already done all of this research on pontificating and coming up with ideas and structures. And then I want to test these structures in real time, manipulate time, right? That is the way that people should be thinking. And I do not believe that we've been taught to think the proper way. At least I haven't. of, hey, take the information, think about it, apply it to yourself, see if it sits, test it in real life. If so, take the things that work. Instead, it's like, this word is gospel, take it and use it or you're an idiot. That's very dangerous. So I want to perpetuate a completely different message. So let's get back to talking with chat. Understand power dynamics. You win by becoming the man. That path is slower, right? Let's see if I can talk to chat while I'm recording. So this is the thing, though. Why do you say that path is slower? Why do you say it's lonelier? Why do you say it's terrifying at first? And what does it involve? Does it involve telling the truth like Larry David every single second of the time? What does it involve? And I'm going to end this pretty soon because we're already at 15 minutes. When people say the virtuous path is slow, lonely, and terrifying, they usually mean it's in a vague church poster way. Let's strip the mysticism. Yeah. Why it's slow? The green path is fast because it borrows energy. Absolutely. It borrows other people's ignorance, asymmetries of information, shortcuts through trust you didn't earn, leverage you didn't create. The climber. If you watch my older video I put a couple days ago. Virtue refuses to borrow energy, it insists on earned force. That means progress comes from actual competence, real value creation, long-term trust, and reputation that survives scrutiny. Those compound more slowly at first, but they don't reset to zero when the mask slips. Green style wins often do. So slow really means no hacks, no hidden levers, no adrenaline spikes, just accumulation like lifting without steroids, which again comes back to my huge debate on it's so important to be creating content because then people can look at your virtual footprint and see how long you've been real. That is so powerful, right? How cool is it that I can go back and watch Iman Gadzhi's old videos? How cool is it that I can see Messi growing up as a kid playing like a young Messi? That's freaking incredible. It makes me love him that much more because I've seen the process. So the more documentation you have, the more people are actually going to relate with you. That's something I struggle with seriously, especially because I've been playing the climber game as opposed to the builder game. People bond over shared secrets, mutual rule breaking, plausible deniability. Don't worry, everyone does it. Yeah, corruption is social. Corruption is social. When you stop playing that game, two things happen immediately. People can't read you as easily. People who rely on corruption feel unsafe around you. Not because you're judging them, but because you're no longer complicit. That creates distance, not forever, but at first, yes. Old alliances weaken before new, cleaner ones appear. That's one of my biggest fears is, man, there's a lot of people that I really, really like, and I'm terrified that if I share my story and be better and better, that they're going to hate me. My wife is texting me. She's driving right now. I think she's charging her car. So I'm going to end this video soon because I love her and I want to spend time with her. Marcus lost friends when he refused to play court politics. Jesus lost almost everyone before he gained history. Lonely doesn't mean alone. It means misaligned with the crowd you used to run with. Why it's terrifying at first? Because corruption feels like armor. You're used to thinking, I have leverage if this goes south. I know how to maneuver. I can spin this if I have to. Virtue removes that safety net. You step into situations where exposure doesn't save you, manipulation isn't available, outcomes aren't fully controllable. That forces you to rely on your word, your skill, your resilience, your willingness to lose. That's scary because you finally feel reality again. That is such a line. You finally feel reality again. And that's what I want. I've gotten so deep into this game of building stuff that it starts to feel, especially like we just play, everybody's playing politics, man. And I'm so sick of playing politics. I want to say how I really feel. I want to talk and not have to avoid confrontations. I want to really have truthful conversations. This is a big misconception. Does this mean tell the truth like Larry David 100% of the time? If you haven't seen Larry David, highly recommend. He produced Seinfeld, and I think it's called The Larry David Show. Yeah, I think it's just called The Larry David Show, something like that. Cool, impulsivity. So that doesn't mean be impulsive. Stoics and Christians both reject compulsive truth blurting. Virtue is not saying everything you think, humiliating others for honesty, self-sabotage in the name of transparency. That's ego. Virtue is not lying to gain advantage, not manipulating, not saying things that fracture. Yes. Beautiful. Tell your truth. I need to post more content. I hope this was useful for you guys. Peace.